shall fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. This piece is from the Trumpet magazine, links on my site, but it might as well be from any good source. But where have you heard it? Very few places, I wager. But we in A Radio believe you should not just listen to what you hear and see in all media, but do your own investigation. That is the key here, and we will be doing much more on this. Here in this article, it's being called Democratic Socialists of America. But it doesn't end with America. They just substitute the country name. They are in Canada, where they are in every political party. Some seen, some not. They are definitely in the UK, embedded deeply into the Labour Party. All over Europe, in various parties, out in the open in France and Germany. Ironically, for anyone who remembers the National Socialist Party, you should, because it's where Adolf Hitler came from. Here's part of the piece. Socialists are taking over the Democratic Party, and it's not being done in secret, but openly. Bernie Sanders is an avowed socialist. He honeymooned in the Soviet Union, won a seat in the Vermont Senate, and mounted an extremely popular campaign against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. Millions supported his call to dismantle corporations, double the minimum wage, and mandate universal health care. Sanders lost the Democratic primary, but he may well have won the Democratic Party. 57% of Democrats now say they have a favourable view of socialism. That's right, more than half of Democrats openly admit they support socialism. The latest being Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York, who is a self-described socialist who won a sensational upset against a high-ranking Democrat. According to the Democratic National Committee chairman Tom Perez, she is the future of the Democratic Party. So what is socialism? Socialism is authoritarian in its purest form. Socialism means that the government controls the entire economy. The government owns not only the postal service, it owns all the businesses without competition. Most modern American socialists say that government doesn't have to literally own all businesses as long as it heavily regulates and taxes them. That should sound familiar to Americans, but people like Sanders emphasize that they are democratic socialists, which means that this enormously powerful government will be voted in by the majority of the people. Karl Marx, the father of communism, wrote that the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of ruling class to win the battle of democracy. Vladimir Lenin, famous Russian communist revolutionary, wrote, proletarian democracy is 1,000,000 times more democratic than any bourgeois democracy. Joseph Stalin, a famous Soviet communist dictator, led an effort to replace the original Democrat Soviet constitution with an even more democratic version. Its Bill of Rights was even more extensive than the American Bill of Rights. It guaranteed the right to vote to every single Soviet citizen over the age of 18. This is all very democratic. American liberals would support it. They did back then, but history records the end result of Marx's, Lenin's and Stalin's socialism, a horrific totalitarian state where the enormously powerful government reduced its citizens to their subhuman status, crushed the human spirit and literally murdered millions of its own people. Socialism is against the US Constitution. Let me say that again. Socialism is against the US Constitution. The democratic socialism in the Soviet Union turned into a continent-sized horror story, not because people didn't get it to vote, but because the Soviets ignored the laws that limited government's power and protected individual rights. Today, socialism is gathering strength. What people don't understand about democratic socialism is that its aim of socialism in the United States is to overthrow the constitutional form of government by violence if necessary. I think we've all been seeing that. Socialists usually downplay this, but the protests and riots occurring across America today are not really against President Trump. They are against the constitutional system of government he leads. How widespread and how violent will this movement get? That is the history of socialism. And the article continues, and I urge you to read the whole article because it's absolutely fascinating and blows open what democratic socialists are really about. Please pass on the links to your friends. These so-called socialists are deeply embedded in nearly every political party in our Western democracies. Their intention is simple: to overthrow by any means the current structure and culture in the West, using all tools against their opposition: race, colour, religion, culture, laws, taxes, health, transportation, population, climate. Anything that furthers their goal is acceptable. They are in every large town and city in America and Canada and Australia, not to mention the UK and most of Europe. All they do, as we've said previously, is change the name at the end of Democratic Socialist. You could, in fact, if you wanted to be that way, describe it as a almost one world government, couldn't you? If you wanted to be conspiratorial, that is. We urge you to do your homework and see where this Democratic Socialist operation is. It's everywhere. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. You can now find us on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a Twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio, that's EHRADIO, A Radio, and please click on the like button. And you can find all my podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com and click on the Morning Moments tab.